Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here again. This is my third year with the IRP, and I find a great benefit of being here and being able to share with you, but more importantly, to learn from you all the presentations that my peers are going to be providing and the discussion that we will have today as we're looking at this and the recovery framework and the importance of planning what we do prior to a disaster. And those things that the governor had spoken about and also as we were learning about from the earthquakes. It is so important that all of these great earthquakes and the big disasters that we have, that we do learn from them so that we do not repeat the mistakes that we had in the past. And I want to talk to you today about what we've been doing at FEMA and moving forward. It's important, FEMA's mission statement, but FEMA is there as a federal agency, and we support those at the state and local level. It's important to understand that we are not the first responders during disasters, but we support and provide resources to those that are out doing the response to disasters, recovery from, how we mitigate those hazards so that they don't impact as they have in the past. A little snapshot of what we do at FEMA. I want to key in on the last two, to reduce risk from disasters through mitigation programs. It's been proven for the money that we can provide ahead of a disaster, how much better off we'll be, and to lessen those impacts of the disaster is key. And then also how we coordinate with the whole community. It's not just about the government, it's about those non-governmental agencies. Last year's conference had a focus on private industry, so it's those private partners that we bring in, because it is the whole community, as we've been talking for a number of years, that must come together, both in the preparation of disasters as well as the response and the recovery aspects. One of the foundational basis for FEMA and what it is we do has become FEMA's strategic plan. This has given FEMA a new look. I have been with FEMA for 6 years now, and to really take a good look at what it is we are to provide and the responsibility that we have to the citizens of the United States and how we do our business differently. I want to key in here is that it is a national look that we do, as I mentioned, through our partners at the governmental levels and the whole community. I want to focus in on 5 strategic priorities, and I'm going to narrow it down to just one priority here very rapidly. As we were looking to develop in 2014 through 2018 our strategic priorities for FEMA, for the federal government, for what it is we do, and you will see that they all go back to disasters. The first one is to be survivor-centric. I think as the governor was speaking, it drove home to me with how we look at things so that we are out there servicing the citizens that we are there providing services to. The second priority was to become expeditionary. In these days of technology and how we can better provide our services during disasters and things that we can do differently so that we are not doing them as we did 30 years ago, but how we can do it with resources of today. I'm going to skip over priority number 3 because I'm going to come back to that one in greater detail. Priority number 4, disaster risk reduction nationally. How do we take a look at things not just within our own communities but across the nation so that as we have disasters in one area, other areas of the country will learn from that and we'll be able to do things better across the whole country. And then our 5th priority was looking internally to FEMA and how we provide resources to our employees so that they have the training and know what to do when they go out to a disaster so that they can be providing beneficial expertise out there to the communities. Focusing in now on priority number 3, and I think this is why we're here today, to posture and build capability for catastrophic disasters. It's important that we know what our disasters are, that we're able to address things. We have developed a national preparedness system which provides planning, training, exercises. This is across the whole community. looking at those partnerships, the tools that are developed. With the help of the internet, there are so many resources that we can share. We can become overloaded with resources and tools, but to be able to take a look at those and see what it is we can use and to learn from those. And then also looking at survivors. Also, as the governor was mentioning, 80% of the people that get rescued are by their neighbors and not by the professionals. But how we come together as communities and know our neighborhoods and to be able to assist when it comes to catastrophic planning. Looking at the whole community, as we have talked, it's not just the federal government, but it's everybody coming together as an organization. So one of the key elements back when the president signed in, the president actually signed an executive order which is referred to as the Presidential Policy Directive 8, PPD 8 for us. And in there, to establish the national preparedness goal to secure a resilient nation with the capabilities required across the whole community to prevent, protect, mitigate, respond, and recover from threats and hazards that pose the greatest risk. And how important that was to have the president there backing this, being that support and the champion behind what it is we do and how we move forward with the planning effort. So the first element was so that we had a national planning system. We needed to all be working on our plans under one system, one way of designing it so that we were all working together cohesively. So as we built the planning system and worked out so that it would outline things that we learned from Katrina and continue to be able to use it as we use the system going forward. And from there, in PPD 8, it established the frameworks. I was here before our recovery framework was signed in, and then last year to be able to talk about the recovery framework and how we've used it as we move forward. But it's important to understand that it's more than just the recovery framework. We have the prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery framework. So it's really all 5 of these frameworks working together to define the whole emergency management process and the things that we must be able to take into consideration. It's important that they complement each other and that they all work together. So there is the thread of them working together, and I'm going to show you in the next slide here how that happens. So the framework is the strategic documents as to how we can do the 5 frameworks and the 5 elements of emergency management. And then it really comes into the federal interagency operations plans. We refer it to as FIOPS. So those are really how we work together, more descriptive in how things come together and how we move forward in the disaster, whether it be prevention, protection, response, mitigation, or recovery. It's important, these core capabilities by each of the mission areas. This was really how the basis of how we can work together and learn from these elements of the planning effort. You'll see across the top that all 5 of the frameworks have the first 3 elements in common. Public information and warning is key. Operational coordination, because if we're not coordinated and working together, it'll be difficult to have a positive outcome. And then also the critical aspects of planning. So working together. And then you can see once we get down lower than that, we work into the other core capabilities, those things that must be in place within each of those 5 mission areas that we have. So these are very important for us, and this is what we use as a basis for our exercise and validating these capabilities. So when we go out and to be able to know if we're prepared, are we doing better? Are we going to move that mark so in the next disaster event, have we done something to lessen the impacts of that? Are we quicker in our response? Are we more planned out for our recovery? Are we able to come together? So these are the things that we want to have lessons learned. We do a national level exercise every year. Last year we did one in Alaska. and our partners from the Cabinet Affairs Office in Japan were able to attend that, as well as other international members, to see what we do, and then to be able to hear from them as to how they have done things or perhaps experienced it has been very, very important for us. So the recovery framework in action. We have unfortunately had many instances to be able to put our recovery framework into action, as was noted the last time from Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy that hit the east coast of the United States, and bringing together the regional efforts there, and to be able to not just look at it for us in the United States as a state-by-state recovery, but really as that whole region when we had New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, all those states coming together, and a lot of them depend on the same systems. So being able to take that, the recovery framework, and to apply that regionally was most beneficial. Over the past year, we've actually had some additional things that we've been able, for the disasters, and things that we've been able to look at and to be able to consider and to have lessons learned, such as the Santa Clara Pueblo, one of our tribal nations, got impacted by 2 back-to-back flooding events. And something that we were able to learn from was the cultural diversity in the United States when we're working with tribal governments, and the things that are important to them. So it's important to know your communities and what is important to them, whether it be religious or otherwise, but how to be cognizant of that as you're moving forward was a great lesson learned for us, and something that we've been able to take and apply elsewhere. When we had the Oso, Washington floods, a landslide on the mountain, we had 43 fatalities, which was a large number of fatalities for us in the United States, and the high percentage of that community that was then cut off. They had one road running through the community that severed between 2 cities, and so the work that we had to do in bringing in, and when the landslide happened, and those things that we would normally go in and do with the search and rescue, and the search and rescue comes with the search dogs that are there to generally recover live bodies. Well, in a landslide such as this, we were not going to be looking for live bodies, and so the emotional toll on the dogs was amazing, and we had to go out and get dogs, cadaver dogs, and so learning from that, it's not just the emotional toll of the humans, but we had to look beyond that and the dogs and the good work that they were doing, and to be able to recover all of those bodies, which means so much to the people and the relatives and that community in their effort to recover from. And in Pilgrim, Nebraska, looking at the tornadoes. In the United States this year, our biggest disaster has been the tornadoes, and they're not just coming during a typical tornado season for us in the United States, which would be May, June. Now they're happening in the winter, and so the impacts of that, and also the impacts of them happening in the schools. More and more schools are being impacted, and one of the things that we have realized is that none of the schools in the United States, very few schools, actually have tornado shelters. So when you're a parent and you're dropping your child off at school, tornadoes come up very quickly, and if there's no protection, the number of deaths, as you can imagine, can increase tremendously. So we do have the ability to impose, to be able to, when we build back, because the federal government, the finances that FEMA does, to make that mandatory that they put in tornado shelters. And we've had a number of our states and communities have taken their mitigation money and being able to provide to residents so that they could put tornado shelters in their homes. And so we're really, this has been a big push for us, and something that we've identified through the recovery elements as to how we can be better prepared so that there's less loss of life in the future. So these are just a few examples of the recovery framework in action, and how we have pulled together communities and had them take a look at their disaster as it has happened, and then how we can make that be better in the future to lessen the impacts of the disaster, and how we're moving forward. I'd say when it comes to catastrophic planning, because in the United States it's been since October of 2012 when Superstorm Sandy hit us, We haven't had a catastrophic disaster, thank goodness, but our hearts go out to the other parts of the world that have had catastrophic disasters. But it's key as we go out and we promote our national planning system, our national preparedness goals, that planning must be inclusive of everyone. We all must participate together. We must be collaborative to learn from each other, and it must be deliberative. As we've gone and done our planning efforts from the federal level, but then taking that down to the regional level as we're looking, as we have the different earthquake zones in the United States and how we bring those planning partners together for all phases of the planning effort to make sure that they are prepared for that. So I once again thank you all for being here today and look forward to learning from all of you too as we go forward. So thank you.